Chile.
Chile, Part 1 Table of Contents.
All about Chile. With visiting and touring information, geography, history, attractions, and other points of interest.
Dr. Sydney Soclof. Dr. Sydney22@gmail.com. 2022. Narration by Dr. Sydney Soclof.
Zoe Phonemes.
And Nathan Koltov. For a more complete discussion of YouTube navigation, please go to this video using the link here. Chapter 1 Chile. Chilean flag. The star is seen as a guide on the path of progress and honor, while the blue stands for the sky. The white stripe corresponds to the snow of the Andes Mountains. The red stripe below reminding citizens of the blood of those who sacrificed themselves for their country. Chile is officially called the Republic of Chile, or in Spanish, República de Chile.
Chapter 2. Where is Chile?
Chile is in the southern half of the South American continent, well below the equator. So it is in the southern hemisphere. In fact, the northernmost tip of Chile is some 660 miles or 1,060 kilometers below the equator.
Indeed, virtually all of Chile is beyond, or south of the Tropic of Capricorn. So it is outside of the tropics. As a result, most of the country has a temperate climate.
For example, Santiago, the capital of Chile, is at a latitude of 33.5 degrees south.
That is about the same distance south of the equator as Los Angeles. California is north, at 34.1 degrees north, and Savannah, Georgia at 32.1 degrees north. As a result, Santiago has warm to somewhat hot summers and mild winters.
The southernmost city in Chile is Punta Arenas, which claims to be the southernmost city on the continent of South America. It is located at 53.0 degrees south. In comparison, Ushuaia, Argentina is a little bit further south at 54.8 degrees. This can be compared to Juneau, Alaska, at 58.3 degrees north, or Edinburgh, Scotland, at 55.9 degrees north. Chile is bordered on the west by a very long coastline along the Pacific Ocean.
Chile is bounded on the north by Peru.
Chile is bounded on the east by Bolivia and Argentina. The border with Argentina is 5,150 kilometers in length, and with Bolivia, it is 861 kilometers, for a total of 3,735 miles, or 6,011 kilometers.
Here is a relief map of Chile. The most dominant feature is the Andes mountain range that runs along the entire western border between Chile and Argentina for some 2,300 miles, or 3,700 kilometers. The border between Chile and Argentina is the Andes mountain range, which is part of the Great Cordillera, or mountain range, that extends all of the way from northern Alaska down to Tierra del Fuego.
The Andes are part of the Great chain of mountains that run through the entire length of North and South America.
This cordillera runs from the Brooks Range in Alaska, through the Canadian and American Rockies, and then through Mexico and Central America, and finally through the Andes of South America, to the very southern tip of the continent. The elevations in the Andes vary from 16,000 to 22,000 feet, 4,900 to 6,700 meters. South America's highest mountain is Aconcagua at 22,831 feet, 6,959 meters, on the border between Chile and Argentina.
The high number of the peaks that reach over 21,000 feet, 6,400 meters. Some of these mountains are volcanic in origin. Chile also has a relatively short shoreline along the Atlantic Ocean down in Tierra del Fuego. To the south of Chile is the Southern Ocean, where the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans join together. And beyond that is Antarctica.
Chapter 3. How big is Chile?
Chile is a very long and skinny country. In fact, it is the longest north to south country in the world.
Chile is 2,700 miles, or 4,300 kilometers, from the border with Peru in the subtropical north, at latitude 17.5 degrees south, to the subantarctic tip of South America, at Cape Horn, at 56 degrees south.
The southern tip of Chile, at Cape Horn at 56 degrees south, is only 400 miles, or 640 kilometers from Antarctica.
Chile is a long skinny country, with an average width of 110 miles or 177 kilometers. At its widest point, at Antofagasta, it is 217 miles, or 350 kilometers wide from west to east. At other places, Chile shrinks to a width of under 10 miles, or 16 kilometers in the south near Naples. The length of Chile would stretch from the northern border of the U.S. down through Mexico to Central America.
The length of Chile would also stretch from St. Petersburg in Russia, down to the southern border of Egypt, with the Sudan in Africa. In South America, Chile is the seventh largest country after Venezuela.
Here is the area of the largest countries in South America in millions of square kilometers. We see that Chile is seventh in size after Venezuela and is about 1/4 the size of Argentina. Chile is 10% larger in area than Texas,
or a little less than twice the size of California. Chile is a little more than twice the area of Germany. Chapter 4. What time is it in Chile?
Here are the time zones, and the time in various places, in terms of standard time, not daylight savings time. Note that Chile uses daylight savings time, but Argentina does not.
Surprisingly, Chile is in the same time zone as the Atlantic Standard Time Zone of the Maritime Provinces of Eastern Canada. That time zone is 1 hour ahead of the Eastern Standard Time Zone of the United States. However, in January, when it's 12 noon in New York, it is 2 p.m. in Chile. That is because Chile is on daylight savings time in the summer. In January, when it's 12 noon in London, it is 9 a.m. in Chile.
In January, when it's 1 a.m. in Berlin, it is 9 a.m. in Chile.
Although Argentina and Chile are in two different time zones, Chile has daylight savings time, but Argentina does not. As a result, during the austral summer months, Argentina and Chile have the same time.
Chapter 5. What does Chile look like?
Chile is a varied country, with terrain ranging from Tierra del Fuego and the glaciers and fjords in the south, to the rugged high mountains of the Andes, and the parched Atacama Desert in the north. This is the Atacama Desert. In the north of Chile, this is the Atacama Desert. In the north of Chile, this is the fertile and lush Central Valley in the middle of Chile. This is the mountainous region in the south of Chile.
There are many fjords and glaciers in the extreme south of Chile. These are glaciers in the extreme south of Chile.
This is the Strait of Magellan.
This is Torres del Paine National Park in the south.
Chapter 6. The population of Chile. The population of Chile is 18 million, making it the sixth most populous country in South America, just behind Venezuela and ahead of Ecuador.
The most populous country in South America is Brazil with 208 million.
The population of Chile is comparable to that of the U.S. state of Florida with a population of 21 million.
The population of Chile is just a little larger than the Canadian province of Ontario at 13.6 million.
The population of Chile is just a little larger than the Netherlands with 17 million.
The population of Chile has grown rapidly in the 50 years since 1950. In 1950 the population was 6 million. And by 2005 it has more than tripled to reach 16 million.
The population density of Chile is 20 inhabitants per square kilometers, which is about average for South America. For purposes of comparison, the U.S. has been added. What are the principal cities of Chile? These are metropolitan area populations. We see that Santiago, the capital of the country, is by far the principal city of Chile.
The Santiago metropolitan area population is over 5 million, or about 1/3 of the entire population of Chile. It is the country's industrial, commercial, and cultural center. Valparaiso is the principal port of Chile, and has a population of 250,000.
Now Puerto Montt and Punta Arenas have been added to the list.
Here are some of the principal cities of Chile. Notice most of the principal cities are in the central part of Chile in the region around Santiago.
Antofagasta in the north is an export center for minerals from the interior of the Atacama.
Concepcion is Chile's third largest metropolitan area and is the focus of the nation's heavy industry.
Viña del Mar is one of Latin America's most famous resort towns.
Montt is the tourist center for the Chilean Lake District.
Here are the port cities of Puerto Montt and Punta Arenas. Further south, in Tierra del Fuego.
Here is a map of the population distribution in Chile. We see a strong concentration in the middle part of the country, in the region encompassing Santiago and Valparaiso, with more than 100 inhabitants per square kilometer. In contrast, much of the rest of the country has fewer than 5 inhabitants per square kilometer.
The population distribution in Chile is mostly concentrated in the middle part of the country, from just north of Santiago and Valparaiso, down to Puerto Montt.
Chapter 7. What are the principal regions of Chile?
About 70% of Chile is mountainous, dominated by the Andes mountain range that extends the entire length of the country. The Andes reach heights of 20,000 feet or 6,000 meters in the north. The Andes gradually decrease in altitude further south toward the southern tip of South America, at Tierra del Fuego, where they dip into the sea.
Because of Chile's extreme length, it has a wide variety of climates, from the coastal desert beginning in the tropical north, to the cold subantarctic southern tip. Chile can be divided into 3 basic regions: the north, the middle or center, and the south.
The north.
Chapter 8. The Atacama Desert.
Much of northern Chile is desert, including the extraordinarily dry Atacama Desert. The Atacama Desert is one of the driest areas in the world, with places where rainfall has never been recorded. It is the Earth's driest desert. In the Atacama, measurable rainfall, 1 millimeter or more of rain, may occur as infrequently as once every 5-20 years. Although is a coastal desert on the edge of the largest body of water on the Earth, the Pacific Ocean. The prevailing winds are the easterly trade winds.
The clouds are blocked by the high Andes Mountains, and the moisture is dropped on the eastern side. The Atacama Desert on the western side of the Andes is in the rain shadow and receives no rain. What is the driest continent on Earth?
It's Antarctica.
Vegetation is virtually non-existent in the Atacama Desert.
This is the Atacama Desert.
These are salt formations in the Atacama Desert.
This northern desert region is, however, a rich mineral-producing area. Chile's leading export of the 19th century was nitrate, which came from mines in the Atacama.
Since the beginning of the 20th century, when synthetic nitrates began to be produced, the Atacama Desert became responsible for Chile's current leading export, copper.
Copper is mined in the eastern portion of the country, near the Argentina border.
Chapter 9. The Center of Chile.
The middle section of Chile is a temperate region where more than 90% of the population lives, and where the larger cities, including Santiago and Valparaiso, are located. It is the cultural, political, financial, and social heart of the country. The Andes Mountains forms the backbone of Chile to the east. There are the lower coastal ranges to the west, and in between is the narrow Central Valley, where much of the agricultural production takes place. The Central Valley region around Santiago is home to most of Chile's population. The Central Valley is the historical center from which Chile expanded in the late 19th century, when it integrated the regions to the north and the south. The Central Valley is the economic, political, and agricultural core of the nation. Here is the major metropolitan area between Santiago and the port city of Valparaiso.
Wheat is the leading crop of central Chile, and alfalfa is grown widely as livestock feed. Large areas are devoted to vineyards, which produce grapes for Chile's wine industry.
The Central Valley of Chile extends southward for some 700 miles or 1130 kilometers, reaching the Mont. The coastal mountains that fragment into a chain of islands that fringe the coast for hundreds of miles down to Tierra del Fuego.
There is no extensive coastal plain bordering the Pacific Ocean. Generally, the coastal mountains plunge directly to the sea.
Chapter 10. The South of Chile.
The South. South-central Chile is temperate, humid, and suitable for grain cultivation. It also has volcanoes, lakes and forests.
The southernmost third of Chile is deeply indented by deep fjords and is a cold, wet, and windy inhospitable region, and is limited in natural resources. This area includes Tierra del Fuego. The major activity in the southern third of Chile is sheep raising.
This southern part of Chile is called the Chilean Patagonia. In the southernmost part of Chile is the Strait of Magellan and Tierra del Fuego.
The Patagonian Channel is a wonderland of fjords, glaciers, and spectacular panoramas. It can be compared to the Inside Passage of southeastern Alaska. This is the Patagonian Channel.
These are Chilean fjords.
Chapter 11. How far away is Chile? Chile is quite remote from the US, Canada, and Europe. The distance between Santiago and New York City is 4,781 miles, or 7,693 kilometers, as the crow flies.
The distance between Santiago and London in the UK is 7,262 miles, or 11,685 kilometers, as the crow flies.
In comparison, the distance between London and New York City is 3,463 miles. 5,572 kilometers. Less than one half the distance between London and Santiago.
A major gateway city for airline flights from North America to Santiago is Miami. The distance from Miami to Santiago is 4,144 miles or 6,668 kilometers.
Chapter 12. The People of Chile.
Around 90% of Chileans descend from early Spanish colonists, with the overwhelming part also possessing Native American ancestry in varying degrees. Thus, the population majority is known as mestizo. The rest are of either unmixed European ancestry or Native American Amerindian.
Chile is mostly an urban country, with 85% of the population living in cities.
Chileans descended from non-Spanish European nationalities are not very numerous. They include a small yet influential number of Irish and English immigrants that arrived in Chile during the Spanish colonial period and during the 19th century. Government-sponsored immigration from Germany began in 1848. That changed the cultural makeup of the southern provinces of Valdivia, Yankee Way, and Osorno, which still show a strong German influence. Other historically significant immigrant groups include people of Italian, in Valparaiso, Croatian, in Antofagasta and Punta Arenas, French, and Middle Eastern backgrounds. This includes the second largest Palestinian colony outside of the Middle East. Here is the religious affiliation in Chile. It is no surprise that on the basis of the initial settlement by Spain, that Chile is overwhelmingly a Roman Catholic country as is all of South America. There is, however, a significant percentage of the population that is Protestant. Chapter 13. The History of Chile. Chile History Timeline. From 600 to 800 AD, Polynesian seafarers first landed on Easter Island, 1,400 miles from the coast of South America in 1520. Ferdinand Magellan arrived at Tierra del Fuego. Spanish colonial history. The Spanish conquest of South America started in the north, and then went south, along the west coast, through present-day Peru.
The main interests in this region we finding riches, gold and silver. In particular, the gold and silver riches of the Incas drew the Spanish conquistadors down to Peru. Lima in Peru became the most important Spanish colonial city in the area. Then, the discovery of the fabulously rich silver deposits of the Cerro Rico, Rich Hill, at Potosi added to this interest.
Potosi is the southern part of present-day Bolivia, just north of Chile.
The initial colonization of Chile was in the northwest corner. The Spanish colonies there were mainly for the purpose of supplying mules and grain for the silver mines further north.
The main trade route was north, from Chile and Peru, up the coast to Panama. and then across to the Caribbean and the Atlantic Ocean to Spain.
The Spanish conquest and colonization was mainly from the west coast of South America, because Brazil was in Portuguese hands. How did this come about? Portugal was interested in a trade route to the Spice Islands of the Far East. The existing route was to follow the coast of Africa south, then around the Cape of Good Hope, and east across the Indian Ocean, to the Spice Islands.
Pedro Álvares Cabral was a Portuguese nobleman, explorer, and navigator. He had the idea of a shorter and simpler route to Asia, by sailing from Portugal west a certain distance, then straight south, and then west, to the Spice Islands of the Far East.
Cabral sailed from Portugal in 1500. Because of the lack of any good way to determine longitude in those days, Cabral sailed too far to the west. Then sailing south, Cabral bumped into something. That something that he bumped into was then claimed by Portugal and is known as Brazil.
This map shows the division between Spain and Portugal lands in the newly discovered Americas. This dividing line was set up by Pope Alexander VI in 1493 at the request of Spain's rulers, to protect their claims from the Portuguese.
The following year, Spain and Portugal agreed in the Treaty of Tordesillas to move the dividing line about 800 miles west. This treaty would give South America a bilingual European heritage. Today, Portuguese is the language of Brazil, while Spanish is spoken in most of the rest of the continent. In 1541, Pedro de Valdivia, a lieutenant of Pizarro, began the Spanish conquest of Chile and founded Santiago.
Although the Spanish did not find the extensive gold and silver they sought, they recognized the agricultural potential of Chile's Central Valley, and Chile became part of the Viceroyalty of Peru, hail the few Spanish viceroyalties in the Americas.
Chile was part of the Spanish Viceroyalty of Peru.
Chapter 14. Independence from Spain.
Spain over the years got weaker. The vast revenues of gold and silver from the Americas were not put to good use. France, and especially England, rose to challenge the naval power of Spain. Spain suffered the major defeat of the Spanish Armada by England in 1588. Spain is defeated in the Napoleonic Wars and invaded by Napoleon in 1808. This gives the opportunity for the Spanish colonies to declare their independence.
On September 18, 1810, Chile declared its independence from Spain. Bernardo O'Higgins helped lead Chile to independence through independence movements all over South America. In this period of 1804 to 1825.
In 1814, in the Reconquista, Spain regained control of Chile.
Bernardo O'Higgins and General Don José de San Martín of Argentina led the combined Argentine and Chilean Army of the Andes and defeated the Spanish in 1817.
Chapter 15. In the War of the Pacific of 1879 to 1884, Chile's army won nitrate-rich desert lands from Peru and Bolivia. This area remained in contention until the 1929 agreement proposed by President Herbert Hoover.
Chapter 16. The Annexation of Easter Island.
In 1888, Chile annexed Easter Island. Easter Island is considered the most isolated inhabited island on the Earth. Located 2,700 miles or 4,300 kilometers, northwest of Santiago.
Chapter 17. Democracy and Dictatorship.
In 1967, the Marxists took power and nationalized nearly everything. In 1970, Salvador Allende Gossens, a Marxist physician and member of Chile's Socialist Party, was elected president of Chile. 3 years later, in 1973, President Salvador Allende was toppled in a bloody military coup in Santiago. From 1973 to 1980, General Augusto Pinochet led a dictatorship in Chile. Pinochet became president in 1980.
In 1990, General Pinochet gave up power after 16 years of rule.
Chile has become a bastion of democratic political stability and successful trade policies. The percentage of Chileans living in poverty fell from 45 to 21% between 1987 and 2000. Literacy and life expectancy have risen steadily, while infant mortality has declined.
Chile's gross domestic product has more than doubled since 1994. GDP growth in 2001 was 3% despite the international economic slump, and many expect it to rise to 5 or 6% in future years. Inflation was slashed from 27% in 1990 to 3% in 2001. The United Nations put Chile in the top tier of nations best prepared to compete in the global economy. Chile is in a very active seismic region. In 1906, a magnitude 8.6 earthquake in Valparaiso left an estimated 20,000 people dead. In 1939, a magnitude 8.3 earthquake in Chile killed 30,000 people. In 1960, Chile experienced a 9.5 magnitude earthquake.
Much of Chile's mountains and glaciers are the result of the motion and collision of sections of the Earth's crust floating on the Earth's molten core.
The Earth has a molten core with a solid crust made up of individual plates that float on the molten core. Much of the Pacific Ocean rides on a section of the Earth's crust that floats on the molten core of the Earth. Where this tectonic plate intersects adjoining plates are cracks and weak spots that are the focus of earthquake and volcanic activity.
This is evidenced by earthquakes in Japan, California, and Alaska.
The region where the Nazca Plate and Antarctic Plate meet the South American Plate is an area of intense volcanic and earthquake activity, especially along the coast of Chile. This arc around the Pacific Rim is called the Ring of Fire because of the concentration of volcanic and seismic activity. The major trenches on the map are located where tectonic plates meet, with one being driven under another. Note the Peru-Chile Trench off the coast of South America.
This process of mountain building can be the result of one plate sliding underneath another plate, called subduction.
The resulting heat and pressure causes molten magma to percolate upward through cracks and form volcanoes.
Nevado Ojos de Salado. In the Andes, on the Argentina-Chile border, is the world's highest active volcano. Its peak is at 22,600 feet, 6,885 meters. We see that the volcanic activity in South America is concentrated near the boundary of the South American Plate, with the Nazca and Antarctica plates. Much of this activity is in the southern two-thirds of Chile,
and that is shown here. And in particular, the region from Valparaiso and Santiago, south to Puerto Montt.
Chile has 200 volcanoes, of which 50 are active.
Earthquakes.
Chile has had many earthquakes over the years. Both Valparaiso, in 1906, and Puerto Montt, in 1960, have been heavily damaged by earthquakes.
This is earthquake damage in Montt. In 1960, this is a map of the major earthquakes in Chile. From 1868 to 1995.
Chapter 18. What do Chileans like to eat?
Chile yields some of the world's finest and most varied seafood, and many of its traditional plates are specialties from the sea.
The vineyards that are nestled between the ocean and the Andes, on rich volcanic soil, are comparable to the best of Mediterranean Europe and California.
The principal Chilean wine region extends in the Central Valley, from the Santiago area, south to near Concepcion.
Wine is not reserved for the upper classes alone. Chileans of every economic background, from the campesinos in the country to the business executive in Santiago, can and do partake in the many fine and inexpensive varieties available.
This is a vineyard in Chile.
This is the Castillo Vares Cabernet Sauvignon Valle Central Chile 2000.
This is harvesting grapes. There is a noticeable culinary influence from German immigrants, as well as a large number of Chinese restaurants throughout the country, attesting to the country's varied history.
Some traditional foods that are common for lunch usually include a traditional cazuela, a clear broth with rice, potato, corn on the cob, plus a piece of beef or chicken.
A summer favorite is the tasty pastel de choclo. It mixes chicken, beef, olives, and vegetables in a corn casserole.
Panadas are popular snacks throughout the country. They are fried flour tortillas filled with cheese, meat, or seafood.
Pan amasado is a delicious heavy bread that is baked in wood-stoked ovens. It can be found throughout the country, outside most of the cities.
Though Chile is less renowned for meat than neighboring Argentina, grilled beef is the rule at any parrilla, a very popular style of restaurant that also serves a variety of cuts and sausages, chicken, and even lamb.
Lomo a la pobre, poor man's steak, is a filling combination of steak, topped with 2 fried eggs and accompanied with French fries.
Chile's extraordinarily varied seafood is among the world's best. A favorite is fish prepared al vapor, steamed, or a la plancha, grilled, rather than frito or fried. The single most popular food is a bit less healthy, el completo. This is a traditional hot dog in a bun, topped with mayonnaise, ketchup, guacamole, and tomatoes. Chapter 19. The economy of Chile. Chile has the second highest per capita GDP in South America after Argentina, with Uruguay in third place.
This is the GDP of South American countries in billions of US dollars. We see that although Chile has the second largest per capita GDP, and Brazil is in fourth place per capita, horizontal ellipsis, Brazil has the largest overall GDP, because its population is 176 million as compared to Chile's 16 million. In spite of Chile's relatively small population, it is in fourth place in terms of its overall GDP. The industrial sector accounts for about 1/5 of the gross domestic product, with factories concentrated in Santiago, Valparaiso, and Concepcion. The principal agricultural products of Chile are sunflower seeds, lemons, soybeans, grapes, corn, tobacco, peanuts, tea, wheat, and livestock. Chile is the world's largest producer and exporter of copper, and supplies 1/3 of the world's copper. The state-owned firm, Codelco, is the world's largest copper-producing company. About 90% of the value of all exports comes from minerals.
Chile heads the list of mineral producers in Latin America with nitrates, iron ore, coal, gold, silver, sulfur, manganese, petroleum, and of greatest importance, copper.
Chile possesses the world's largest copper reserves.
Copper comprises almost 40% in value of Chile's exports. 3 of its 4 largest mines are found in the Atacama Desert in the north. In addition, the Andes of Chile contain vast amounts of low-grade copper ore.
The Atacama Desert contains the largest nitrate area in the world. In the 1800s, the world leached and heavily overworked soils were in need of a fertilizer that would replace nitrogen. Sodium nitrate from the Atacama began to find markets in the cotton belt of the United States, in parts of Europe, and in Egypt. Exports by 1860 exceeded 50,000 tons per year.
Although nitrates no longer play the important role in the economy that it once did, Chile is still the world's leading producer. With the increased prices of petroleum-based synthetic fertilizers in the mid-1970s, the nitrate industry regained some of its former importance.
Chile's export markets are fairly balanced among Europe, 25.1%, Asia, 33.1%, Latin America 15.7%, and North America 19%.
What does Chile buy?
The major imports are machinery, transportation equipment, iron and steel products, chemicals, petroleum and its products, textiles, sugar, and other foodstuffs.
Here are the import trading partners of Chile.
Chapter 20. The money of Chile.
The money of Chile.
Currency exchange rates can change daily. For the latest exchange rate, click on this icon.
1,000 Chilean pesos equals $1.28, and $1 equals 784 Chilean pesos.
1,000 Chilean pesos equals $1.28.
$1 equals 784 Chilean pesos.
Chapter 21. The climate of Chile.
Will it be hot? Or will it be chilly in Chile?
The climate in Chile is strongly influenced by the Pacific Ocean. This is especially the case since most of Chile is so close to the ocean, along its entire length. Here is a map of the currents of the oceans of the world.
We see that in the Pacific Ocean along the west coast of South America is the Peru Current, also known as the Humboldt Current.
The Peru or Humboldt Current is a northward flowing current that brings up cold water from the Antarctic region. This will cause the temperatures along the Chilean coast to be a little cooler.
Here are the surface sea temperatures on July 13, 2005. Note the effect of the Gulf Stream on temperatures in northern Europe, and a similar effect due to the Alaska Current on temperatures in southeastern Alaska. We see that the sea temperature off the coast of Chile is about 5 degrees Celsius cooler than what would otherwise be expected in the winter. Here are the surface sea temperatures on January 19, 2005. We again note the effect of the Gulf Stream on temperatures in northern Europe, and a similar effect due to the Alaska Current on temperatures in southeastern Alaska.
In the middle of the winter in Chile, we see that the Humboldt Current now has a smaller effect. The sea temperature off the coast of Chile is now only about 2 or 3 degrees Celsius cooler than what would otherwise be expected in the summer.
The extension of Chile across some 38 degrees of latitude encompasses nearly all climates, with the exception of the humid tropics.
3 large climate regions may be distinguished in Chile: the Northern Desert, the Central Mediterranean Zone, and the humid and cool Southern region.
We will look at 4 places: Valparaiso, Santiago, Puerto Montt, and Punta Arenas at the southernmost tip of Chile.
Temperatures in Chile.
Here are the average high and low temperatures in degrees Fahrenheit throughout the year in Valparaiso on the Pacific coast. As a result of the moderating effect of the ocean, there is not much yearly variation.
The summer months of June, July, and August average high temperatures of about 72 degrees Fahrenheit, or 22 degrees Celsius. At night, summer temperatures drop to a cool 55 degrees Fahrenheit, or 13 degrees Celsius.
The winter months of December, January, and February are mild, with average high temperatures of 60 degrees Fahrenheit or 16 degrees Celsius. At night, the winter temperatures drop down to the somewhat chilly 47 degrees Fahrenheit or 8 degrees Celsius.
The winter months of December, January, and February are mild, with average high temperatures of 60 degrees Fahrenheit or 16 degrees Celsius. At night, the winter temperatures drop down to the somewhat chilly 47 degrees Fahrenheit or 8 degrees Celsius.
The winter months of December, January, and February are mild, with average high temperatures of 60 degrees Fahrenheit or 16 degrees Celsius. At night, the winter temperatures drop down to the somewhat chilly 47 degrees Fahrenheit or 8 degrees Celsius. The winter months of December, January, and February are mild, with average high temperatures of 60 degrees Fahrenheit or 16 degrees Celsius. At night, the winter temperatures drop down to the somewhat chilly 47 degrees Fahrenheit or 8 degrees Celsius.
Here are the average high and low temperatures in degrees Fahrenheit throughout the month. We see that it is considerably cooler than Valparaiso as a result of being much further south. Here are the average high and low temperatures in degrees Fahrenheit throughout the month. We see that it is considerably cooler than Valparaiso as a result of being much further south.
Here are the average high and low temperatures in degrees Fahrenheit throughout the year in Puerto Montt. We see that it is considerably cooler than Valparaiso as a result of being much further south. Here are the average high and low temperatures throughout the year in Punta Arenas in Tierra del Fuego down at the southern tip of Chile. We see that it is considerably cooler than both Santiago and Puerto Montt. We see that Punta Arenas has summer, December, January, and February average high temperatures of just 58 degrees Fahrenheit or 14 degrees Celsius. At night, summer temperatures in Punta Arenas drop to a chilly 43 degrees Fahrenheit or 6 degrees Celsius. The winter months in Punta Arenas, June, July, and August are cold, with average high temperatures of 40 degrees Fahrenheit or 4.5 degrees Celsius. At night the winter temperatures drop down to freezing at 32 degrees Fahrenheit or 0 degrees Celsius. Here is a comparison of the average monthly temperatures throughout the year in Santiago, Valparaiso, Puerto Montt and Punta Arenas. We see a progression down the coast from Santiago, Puerto Montt, and then down to the chilly temperatures of Punta Arenas at the southern tip of Chile.
All of these places have their climates very much moderated by the proximity to the Atlantic Ocean. Chapter 22. Rainfall in Chile.
Here is the rainfall throughout the year in Santiago. The yearly total is 22.3 inches or 566 millimeters. The rainy season is in the winter months, and very little rain is recorded in the summer months of December through March.
Here is the rainfall throughout the year in Valparaiso. The yearly total is 19.9 inches or 505 millimeters. We see again that there is a very pronounced rainy season in the winter months of May through August. Very little rain is recorded in the summer months of December through March. Here is the rainfall throughout the year in Puerto Montt. Here is the rainfall throughout the year in Punta Arenas. The yearly total is 16 inches or 396 millimeters.
Here is a comparison of the rainfall throughout the year in Santiago, Valparaiso, Montt and Punta.
Here is a comparison of the yearly total rainfall in Santiago, Valparaiso, Puerto Montt and Punta Arenas. We note that Puerto Montt has a much higher rainfall than Valparaiso to the north and Punta Arenas to the south.
Now Antofagasta in the north and Concepcion in the middle have been added.
Here is the yearly average rainfall going north to south in Chile. The yearly average rainfall in Antofagasta is a scant 0.1 inches.
Again, we note that Puerto Montt has a much higher rainfall than places both to the north as well as to the south.
The reason for this is the prevailing winds. At the latitude of Puerto Montt, the winds are from the west and carry moisture from the Pacific Ocean. Further north and further south the winds are from the east. But the moisture coming in from the Atlantic Ocean is now blocked by the high Andes Mountains.
Here is a rainfall map of Chile and Argentina. We note the much higher rainfall in the region of Montt compared to places further north and south.
Indeed. In the extreme north of Chile in the Atacama Desert, there is no rainfall at all. Let us examine the effects of the Andes Mountains on the amount of rainfall. Here the ocean waters are warmed by the sun.
Water evaporates from the ocean.
As the water vapor rises in the atmosphere, it cools and condenses into tiny water droplets, which forms clouds. Under the influence of onshore winds, the clouds are forced higher up the slopes of the coastal mountain ranges.
The water droplets in the clouds condense and fall as rain, and at higher elevations as snow. Thus, there is the condensation and much rain on the western slopes.
On the eastern land side of the mountains there is a rain shadow, and the precipitation is much less.
On the eastern side of the Andes is Argentina, and the rain shadow is in the region of Patagonia. Thus, on the western side of the Andes, there is lots of rain in the midsection of Chile around Puerto Montt.
But on the eastern slope of the Andes, on the Argentinian side, there is the rain shadow, and the region of Patagonia receives less than 8 inches of rain per year.
For the south, the wind direction changes to the easterlies, and this region is now in the rain shadow of the winds coming off of the Atlantic Ocean.
The easterly trade winds drop most of the moisture east of the Andes, so by the time they reach the western side, in the far northern part of Chile, the rain shadow effect results in virtually no rainfall. In fact, the Atacama Desert is considered to be the driest area on Earth. with no recorded rainfall ever.
Recommended videos, Chile, Part 1.
Recommended video, Geography Now, Chile, 11 minutes, 40 seconds.
Recommended video, Trip to Chile, Adventure of a Lifetime, 3 minutes.
Recommended video, Travel Guide to Chile, 5 minutes, 25 seconds.
Recommended video, Chile, South America, Vacation Travel Video Guide, 51 minutes. Recommended video, Chile Top 10 Things to Do, by Donna Salerno Travel, 4 minutes, 22 seconds. Recommended video, Chilean Miners Rescue August to September 2010, 1 minute, 37 seconds. Chile, Part 1 Table of Contents.
Thanks for watching.